People who organize their homes experience a measurable dopamine spike similar to what gamblers feel when they win. Neuroscientists have discovered that the act of sorting, categorizing, and arranging objects activates the brain's reward center in ways that can actually become addictive. Your drawer full of perfectly arranged spice jars isn't just satisfying, it's biochemically intoxicating. Today, we're diving deep into the fascinating psychology behind why some people can't resist organizing everything they own. We'll explore the hidden emotional drivers, the surprising childhood factors, the neurological patterns, and even the dark side of what seems like a harmless habit. By the end, you'll understand whether you're a natural organizer or if something deeper is driving your need for order. The most unexpected revelation? Sometimes organizing has nothing to do with cleanliness. Why does putting all your books in alphabetical order feel so incredibly satisfying? The answer lies in your brain's reward system, specifically a neurotransmitter called dopamine. When you complete an organizing task, your brain releases dopamine, creating a genuine feeling of pleasure and accomplishment. This isn't just psychological, it's neurochemical. Research from Princeton University found that physical clutter competes for your attention, creating cognitive overload that actually impairs your ability to process information. When you organize, you're literally reducing neural stress. Your brain interprets this as a win. Here's what makes this particularly interesting. The dopamine hit isn't just about the end result. Every small step, sorting one category, labeling one bin, clearing one shelf, triggers a mini reward. It's like a slot machine for your neurochemistry. Some people become so attuned to these micro-rewards that they seek out organizing opportunities the way others might crave coffee or chocolate. The practical takeaway? If you want to build an organizing habit, focus on small, completable tasks that deliver quick dopamine hits. 5 minutes of drawer organizing beats an overwhelming 3-hour closet project. Have you ever noticed that people tend to organize more during periods of life uncertainty? There's a profound psychological reason for this pattern. When external circumstances feel chaotic or unpredictable, a job loss, a relationship ending, global instability, humans instinctively seek control wherever they can find it. Your home becomes the one domain where you have complete authority. Organizing provides tangible proof that you can impose order on at least one aspect of your existence. Psychologists call this compensatory control theory. Studies show that people experiencing powerlessness in their lives often engage in superstitious behaviors, rigid routines, or organizing binges as a way to restore a sense of agency. During the pandemic, professional organizers reported a 300% increase in demand. People weren't just stuck at home with time on their hands. They were grasping for something they could control when the entire world felt unmanageable. That's incredibly revealing. The organizing impulse becomes a coping mechanism, a way to tell yourself that not everything is falling apart. If you find yourself obsessively reorganizing during stressful periods, recognize it for what it is: your psyche's attempt to self-soothe. Channel it productively, but also address the underlying anxiety through other means: therapy, meditation, or talking with trusted friends. The perfectionist paradox for some people: organizing crosses a line from helpful habit to compulsive necessity, and understanding this distinction is crucial. Perfectionism and organizing often intertwine in complex ways that can actually become counterproductive. A healthy organizer enjoys the process and feels satisfied with good enough. A perfectionist organizer agonizes over every decision, endlessly rearranges systems that already work, and experiences genuine distress when things aren't exactly right. The difference matters enormously. Clinical psychologists note that perfectionism rooted in shame or fear of judgment can manifest as organizing behaviors that never feel complete. You spend 4 hours arranging a bookshelf only to tear it apart because the color gradient isn't quite right. You can't relax until every item has the perfect home, but perfection remains forever out of reach. This isn't about achieving order. It's about avoiding the anxiety that comes from accepting imperfection. Here's the paradox. Excessive organizing actually creates more chaos in your life by consuming time, energy, and mental resources that could go toward meaningful activities. If you're organizing the same spaces repeatedly, never feeling satisfied, or if family members complain that your organizing standards are unreasonable, you might be dealing with perfectionism rather than a simple preference for order. The solution involves accepting that organizing systems serve you, you don't serve them. Imperfect organization that functions smoothly beats perfect organization that demands constant maintenance. Childhood imprints. Your adult organizing habits were substantially shaped before you turned 12, whether you realize it or not. Developmental psychologists have extensively studied how childhood environments create lasting patterns around order, chaos, and control. If you grew up in a chaotic household, whether from poverty, neglect, parental conflict, or simply having many siblings in a small space, you might have developed one of two responses. Some people swing hard toward organization as adults, creating the stability they lacked as children. Others internalize chaos as normal and struggle to maintain order even when they desire it. Both patterns are psychological adaptations to early environments. Conversely, children raised in extremely rigid, controlling households sometimes rebel against excessive order, while others adopt it as their comfort zone. One woman I know grew up with a mother who inspected her room daily, criticizing any item out of place. As an adult, she maintains museum-level organization in her home, but she's begun recognizing that she's not actually doing it for herself. She's still trying to meet her mother's standards decades later. That realization was transformative. Interestingly, research shows that children who had some control over their personal spaces, deciding how their room was organized, where toys were kept, tend to have healthier relationships with organization as adults. They see it as self-expression rather than external obligation. If you want to help children develop positive organizing habits, give them age-appropriate autonomy over their spaces rather than imposing your systems on them. And if you're an adult unpacking childhood baggage around order and chaos, therapy can help you distinguish between organizing that serves your current needs and organizing that's still trying to fix your past. Visual processors. Some brains are simply wired to notice and respond to visual stimuli more intensely than others, and this neurological difference explains a lot about why organizing matters more to some people. Visual processors, people whose brains prioritize visual information, experience physical discomfort in cluttered environments that others barely notice. For them, every object in their visual field is actively competing for cognitive attention. Imagine trying to have a conversation while someone constantly taps your shoulder. That's what a cluttered room feels like to a strong visual processor. Neuroscience research using fMRI scans shows that visual processors exhibit heightened activity in their visual cortex when exposed to cluttered environments, along with increased activity in areas associated with stress and distraction. Their brains are working harder to filter information. Organization isn't a preference for these individuals. It's a neurological necessity for cognitive peace. This explains why some people can work productively at a messy desk, while others can't focus until every surface is clear. Neither approach is wrong. They're just different neural operating systems. If you're a visual processor living with someone who isn't, you're dealing with a genuine neurological incompatibility, not just different tidiness standards. That's a relationship game changer. The solution involves recognizing these differences as legitimate rather than one person being right and the other wrong. Visual processors need clear surfaces and hidden storage. Non-visual processors often prefer having items visible so they remember to use them. Compromise might mean closed storage in shared spaces and personal organizing freedom in individual areas. Understanding the neuroscience removes the moral judgment and opens the door to practical solutions. The identity factor. For many people, their organized home isn't just about functionality. It's a carefully curated expression of who they are or who they aspire to be. This identity component adds powerful emotional weight to organizing decisions. Think about the rise of aesthetic organizing on social media. Perfectly arranged pantries with matching containers, color-coordinated closets, minimalist surfaces with carefully chosen decorative objects. These aren't just organized spaces, they're identity statements. They communicate taste, values, lifestyle aspirations, and social status. When someone says, "I'm an organized person," they're often describing a core part of their self-concept. This identity becomes reinforcing. Organized people do organizing things because that's who they are. The psychological term is identity-based habits, and they're incredibly powerful for behavior change. If organizing is part of your identity, You'll maintain systems even when motivation flags because not doing so would create cognitive dissonance. However, this identity attachment can also create problems when it becomes rigid or when life circumstances make maintaining those standards difficult. New parents often experience identity crises when they can't maintain pre-baby levels of organization. Chronic illness or depression can make organizing impossible, leading to shame when your environment no longer reflects your identity. The psychological distress isn't really about the clutter. It's about the perceived gap between who you are and who you think you should be. That distinction is important. If organizing is part of your identity, periodically examine whether it's serving your current life or constraining it. Identity should evolve with circumstances. And if you're trying to build organizing habits, consider making "I am an organized person" part of your self-concept rather than just focusing on specific behaviors. The identity shift often creates more lasting change than anxiety management tool. Many people who love organizing are actually managing underlying anxiety, often without fully recognizing this connection. Organization provides a sense of predictability and control that acts as an anxiety buffer in several important ways. First, organized systems reduce decision-making demands. When everything has a designated place, you eliminate dozens of micro-decisions throughout your day. Where are my keys? Where should I put this mail? What should I wear? Organized systems answer these questions automatically, conserving mental energy and reducing opportunities for anxiety-triggering uncertainty. For people with generalized anxiety disorder, this reduction in daily friction is genuinely therapeutic. Second, the physical act of organizing creates a meditative state similar to other repetitive, focused activities. Folding clothes, arranging books, sorting papers. These tasks occupy your conscious mind with simple, achievable goals while allowing anxious thoughts to quiet. It's a form of moving meditation that produces both a calm mental state and a tangible result. Third, an organized environment reduces what psychologists call background anxiety, the low-level stress of knowing tasks are incomplete or things are out of control. Walking into an organized home tells your nervous system that everything is okay, you're on top of things, and there are no lurking problems demanding attention. For anxious brains constantly scanning for threats, this environmental reassurance has real psychological value. Here's what matters. If you're using organizing to manage anxiety, recognize it as a coping tool rather than just a preference. Use it intentionally when you need grounding, but also develop other anxiety management strategies so you're not dependent on environmental control for emotional regulation. Therapy, medication, exercise, and mindfulness practices address anxiety at its source rather than just managing symptoms through compensatory. The completion effect. There's a specific psychological phenomenon called the Zeigarnik effect that partly explains why organizing feels so satisfying. Named after psychologist Bluma Zeigarnik, this effect describes how incomplete tasks create cognitive tension that persists until the task is finished. Your brain literally keeps a background tab open for every unfinished project, consuming mental resources. When you complete an organizing task, even something small like organizing a junk drawer, you get to close that cognitive tab. The mental relief is immediate and tangible. Unlike many life tasks that never feel truly complete, work projects that evolve, parenting responsibilities that shift, relationship maintenance that's ongoing, organizing offers clear completion. The drawer is organized or it isn't. The closet is sorted or it isn't. This binary completion state is psychologically satisfying in ways that more ambiguous tasks can never achieve. Furthermore, completing organizing tasks builds self-efficacy, your belief in your ability to accomplish what you set out to do. Every finished organizing project serves as evidence that you can identify a problem, create a solution, and execute it successfully. This competence feedback loop boosts confidence that extends beyond organizing into other life areas. That's surprisingly powerful. Research shows that people who regularly complete small, manageable tasks report higher overall life satisfaction and lower depression rates than those whose days are filled with ambiguous, never-ending responsibilities. Organizing provides those completable wins. The practical application? When you're feeling overwhelmed or ineffective in other life areas, organize something small. The completion effect will give you a psychological boost and momentum to tackle other challenges. Just 15 minutes organizing a single shelf can shift your entire mental state from stuck to capable. Social media influence. Before we continue, if you're finding this exploration of organizing psychology valuable, do me a favor and hit that subscribe button. I dig deep into the science behind everyday behaviors, and there's so much more coming. Now, let's talk about something that's dramatically reshaped organizing culture in the last decade: social media's influence on why and how people organize. The rise of Instagram, Pinterest, and TikTok has transformed organizing from a private household task into a public performance. Professional organizers have become influencers with millions of followers. Hashtags like #homeorganization have billions of views. This isn't just documentation, it's fundamentally changing people's relationships with organizing. Social media introduces external validation as a motivator. People organize not just for personal satisfaction, but for likes, comments, and shares. They purchase matching containers not because they improve function, but because they photograph well. The goal shifts from "does this system work for my life?" to "will this look impressive online?" This creates several psychological complications. First, it establishes unrealistic standards. Professional organizers spend hours staging photos, often for spaces that don't reflect real daily life. Comparing your lived-in home to these curated images generates inadequacy and shame. Second, it commodifies organizing, encouraging consumption as a prerequisite for order. You can't just use shoebox lids as drawer dividers. You need the $200 acrylic organizer set to be a real, organized person. This links organizing to financial resources in psychologically problematic ways. Third, it can shift organizing from intrinsic to extrinsic motivation. When you organize for Instagram rather than for yourself, you lose touch with what actually serves your life. However, social media also has positive impacts. It democratizes access to organizing strategies, provides inspiration for creative solutions, builds communities where people support each other's efforts, and normalizes talking about home organization as a legitimate interest. The key is conscious consumption. Follow organizers whose approach resonates with your life rather than those who make you feel inadequate. Remember that you're seeing highlights, not reality. And organize for your own needs first, sharing second if you choose. Decision fatigue fighter. One of the most underappreciated benefits of organization is its power to combat decision fatigue, the deteriorating quality of decisions after a long session of decision-making. Research shows that humans have limited cognitive resources for decisions each day. Every choice, no matter how small, depletes this resource. By late afternoon, we make worse decisions than we did in the morning, opting for easy defaults rather than optimal choices. This is why Steve Jobs wore the same outfit daily and Barack Obama limited his wardrobe choices. They were conserving decision-making energy for more important matters. Organization serves the same function by creating systems that eliminate trivial decisions. A well-organized closet with a capsule wardrobe removes the morning decision paralysis about what to wear. A meal-planned kitchen with organized ingredients eliminates the "what's for dinner" daily crisis. An organized workspace with designated homes for supplies means you're not constantly deciding where to put things or where to find them. Each organizational system removes dozens of micro-decisions from your day. For people in demanding careers or with significant caregiving responsibilities, this cognitive conservation is invaluable. You're not wasting mental energy on household minutiae, leaving more cognitive resources for work projects, creative thinking, or emotional presence with family. The psychological impact extends to stress reduction as well. Decision fatigue doesn't just make us choose poorly. It makes us feel overwhelmed and exhausted. When every object in your home requires a decision about its location, your home itself becomes a source of cognitive drain rather than restoration. That's incredibly impactful. If you want to leverage organization for decision fatigue reduction, focus on areas where you make repeated daily decisions: morning routines, meal preparation, work/study spaces, and getting out the door. Create systems once, then benefit from reduced cognitive load indefinitely. The initial investment in organizing these areas pays compound returns in daily mental energy. The collector's dilemma. There's a fascinating tension between people who love organizing and people who love collecting, and understanding this dynamic reveals a lot about different psychological relationships with possessions. Collectors experience genuine joy from acquiring, categorizing, and displaying objects, whether that's books, vinyl records, vintage cameras, or any other collectible category. The collection itself provides identity, pleasure, and often social connection through collector communities. However, collections require space and create visual complexity that can conflict with organizing impulses. Here's where it gets psychologically interesting. Some people are both organizers and collectors. For them, the organizing impulse serves the collection. Every item is cataloged, properly stored, and beautifully displayed. The collection and organization reinforce each other. But for others, collecting and organizing are in constant conflict. The collector impulse says acquire more, while the organizing impulse says reduce and simplify. This internal tension creates genuine psychological distress and relationship conflicts when partners fall on opposite sides. Research on possessions and well-being shows that collections bring joy when they're curated, displayed, and genuinely valued, but create burden when they're unorganized. Masses of stuff owned out of guilt, obligation, or inability to let go. The line between collecting and hoarding is actually about relationship with objects and impact on functioning, not just quantity. A well-organized 3,000-book library isn't hoarding. 3,000 books in piles that prevent using rooms might be. The psychological distinction matters. If you're a collector feeling pressure to minimize, recognize that collections can be psychologically healthy when properly managed. Don't let minimalism trends shame you out of things that genuinely bring joy. But also honestly assess, are you collecting or just accumulating? Does the collection enhance your life or constrain it? If you're an organizer living with a collector, try to understand that the collection provides psychological value beyond just the objects themselves. Work together to create organizational systems that honor the collection while maintaining functional shared spaces. Seasonal reset psychology. Why do humans across cultures have traditions of spring cleaning, New Year organizing, and seasonal home resets? The psychology behind these cyclical organizing urges reveals something fundamental about how we process time and change. Seasonal transitions create natural psychological pivot points, moments when we're already primed for change and renewal. Spring represents rebirth and fresh starts across many cultures. The new year embodies goal setting and reinvention. These seasonal markers provide what psychologists call temporal landmarks, dates that feel like new beginnings, making it easier to break old patterns and establish new ones. Starting a new organizing routine is easier in January or with the first warm spring day than on an arbitrary Tuesday in October. Our brains respond to these temporal landmarks by creating psychological distance from past behavior and increasing optimism about change. Furthermore, seasonal organizing addresses practical needs that change with weather, rotating wardrobes, storing holiday decorations, preparing spaces for different seasonal activities, but it also serves a deeper psychological function. It's a ritual of renewal and control. You're not just organizing closets, you're symbolically clearing away the old and making space for new possibilities. Anthropologists note that cleaning and organizing rituals appear in cultures worldwide, often connected to religious observances or seasonal celebrations. These aren't just practical tasks. They're meaningful rituals that mark time and create psychological transitions. Modern life has somewhat disconnected us from seasonal rhythms, but the psychological pull of seasonal organizing persists. That connection to natural cycles is important. If you feel a strong urge to organize at certain times of year, honor it rather than forcing yourself to maintain constant organizing throughout the year. Work with your natural rhythms. Set up organizing projects around temporal landmarks when motivation is naturally higher. And recognize that the satisfaction you feel from seasonal organizing isn't just about cleaner closets. It's about participating in a human ritual of renewal that connects you to both your own cycles and collective cultural patterns. The Procrastination Trap. Here's an uncomfortable truth that many organizing enthusiasts need to hear. Sometimes, organizing is procrastination in disguise. When you spend 3 hours color-coding your bookshelf while a work deadline looms, you're not being productive. You're avoiding something psychologically uncomfortable through a socially acceptable form of productive procrastination. This pattern is remarkably common and psychologically complex. Unlike obviously unproductive procrastination activities like scrolling social media or watching TV, organizing feels virtuous. You're doing something useful, creating visible results, getting that dopamine hit from completion. It's much harder to recognize as avoidance because it doesn't trigger the guilt that accompanies other forms of procrastination. Your brain can justify it. I needed to organize this space to work efficiently, or this needed to be done anyway. But if organizing tasks consistently take priority over more important but anxiety-inducing work, writing that difficult email, having that uncomfortable conversation, tackling that complex project, you're using organization as an emotional avoidance tool. Psychologists who study procrastination note that people often choose urgent but less important tasks over important but not urgent ones as a way to feel productive while avoiding discomfort. Organizing fits this pattern perfectly. It's tangible, completable, and satisfying in ways that difficult knowledge work often isn't. The challenge is developing honest self-awareness about when organizing serves you and when it's serving your avoidance. Try this test. Do you suddenly feel compelled to organize when facing a difficult task? Does organizing urgent household tasks consistently prevent you from doing work that matters more for your long-term goals? If yes, you might be caught in the procrastination trap. The solution isn't to stop organizing. It's to schedule it appropriately. Organize during genuinely free time or as a planned break, not as an escape from important work. When you catch yourself reaching for an organizing project while avoiding something else, acknowledge what you're doing and address the underlying anxiety instead. Relationship dynamics. Few household topics create as much relationship conflict as different organizing standards, and understanding the psychology behind these conflicts can save partnerships. When one person needs order to feel calm and another is comfortable with casual clutter, you're not dealing with one person being right and the other being wrong. You're dealing with different nervous systems, different childhood programming, and different cognitive styles. These aren't moral failings, they're psychological differences. However, these differences create real friction. The organized partner feels constantly stressed by their environment and may interpret their partner's clutter as disrespect or lack of care. The relaxed partner feels controlled, criticized, and unable to relax in their own home. Both partners are genuinely suffering, just in opposite ways. Relationship researchers who study household conflict note that organizing disputes are rarely about the actual objects. They're about respect, consideration, control, and differing values. When you say, "You never put things away," your partner hears, "You're failing at being a good partner." When you say, "Stop nagging me about organizing," your partner hears, "Your feelings don't matter to me." The emotional subtext overwhelms the practical issue. That makes resolution complicated. Successful resolution requires several steps. First, both partners must recognize their standards as preferences rather than objective truth. Second, create explicit agreements about shared spaces versus personal spaces. Shared spaces require compromise. Personal spaces allow individual standards. Third, the organized partner often needs to lower their standards in shared spaces, while the relaxed partner needs to meet agreed-upon minimums. Both people have to move toward the middle. Fourth, recognize that organizing tasks should be fairly distributed but don't have to be equal. If one person cares more about organization, they might reasonably do more organizing labor, but this should be acknowledged as a contribution they're making, not an expectation or obligation. Finally, consider that professional organizing help can be worth the investment if it removes a persistent source of conflict. A few $100s for a professional organizer might save thousands in couples therapy. The goal isn't perfectly matching standards. It's creating a home where both partners feel respected and comfortable. The flow state. For many organizing enthusiasts, there's a meditative, almost transcendent quality to the act of organizing that resembles what psychologists call flow state. A condition of complete absorption in an activity where time disappears and the self dissolves into the task. Flow researcher Mihai Csikszentmihalyi identified specific conditions that create flow: clear goals, immediate feedback, a balance between challenge and skill, and complete focus. Organizing activities often meet these conditions perfectly. The goal is clear: organize this closet. Feedback is immediate and visible. Items are getting sorted and arranged. The challenge level is just right. complex enough to require attention but not so difficult as to create frustration. And the physical, hands-on nature of organizing demands present-moment focus that quiets the constant mental chatter that normally occupies our consciousness. This flow state is partly why organizing feels so satisfying and even addictive for some people. During organizing flow, your brain shifts into a mode characterized by reduced activity in the prefrontal cortex, the area responsible for self-criticism, time, awareness, and worried rumination. This is why organizing can feel like a mental vacation despite being physically active work. You emerge from 3 hours of closet organization feeling mentally refreshed rather than depleted, even if you're physically tired. For people whose work is mentally demanding, ambiguous, or lacking in clear completion points, organizing provides a rare opportunity for flow that their professional life doesn't offer. This makes it particularly appealing to knowledge workers, creatives, and people in helping professions where outcomes are subjective and feedback is delayed. Organizing delivers the immediate satisfaction and flow state their work cannot. That's psychologically significant. If you experience flow during organizing, recognize this as a legitimate form of rest and mental restoration, not just productive work. Schedule regular organizing time not as obligation, but as flow state self-care. And if you rarely experience flow in other areas of life, consider why organizing provides it when other activities don't. This insight might guide you toward future self-investment. There's a fascinating psychological concept called future self-continuity, the degree to which you feel connected to and care about your future self. People with high future self-continuity save more money, make healthier choices, and organize their environments more consistently. The connection to organizing might not be immediately obvious, but it's profound. When you organize, you're not primarily serving your present self, you're serving your future self. You're making a gift to the person you'll be tomorrow, next week, next month. Finding your keys immediately because they're always in the designated spot, that's past you taking care of present you. Having an organized kitchen that makes dinner preparation efficient, past you serving present you again. This orientation toward future benefit requires psychological maturity and what researchers call delayed gratification. Organizing costs time and effort now for benefits that accrue later. People with low future self-continuity, who feel disconnected from their future selves, struggle with organizing because they're essentially helping a stranger. Why would present you invest effort to benefit someone you don't feel connected to? Interestingly, research shows that increasing future self-continuity improves all sorts of long-term beneficial behaviors, including organizing. Interventions that help people visualize and feel connected to their future selves, writing letters to future you, creating vivid images of future life, regularly checking in on long-term goals, strengthen the psychological connection that makes organizing easier. That's actionable insight. If you struggle with organizing, try this. Before starting an organizing task, visualize your future self benefiting from this system. Imagine yourself 1 month from now easily finding what you need, feeling calm in this space, appreciating the effort past you invested. This mental exercise strengthens future self-continuity and provides intrinsic motivation beyond just should-do obligation. And if you're already a consistent organizer, recognize that you have high future self-continuity, a psychological strength that likely benefits many areas of your life, not just home organization. Professional organizer insights. Professional organizers who work with hundreds of clients develop fascinating psychological insights about what drives organizing behavior and what prevents it. I spoke with several experienced organizers, and certain patterns emerged that reveal deep truths about organizing psychology. First, they unanimously noted that the physical disorganization is almost never the real problem. It's a symptom of something else. Chronic disorganization often signals overwhelm, depression, unprocessed grief, difficult life transitions, or decision-making paralysis. People hire organizers hoping to fix the clutter, but what they often need is permission to let go, support through difficult emotions about possessions, or help identifying what they actually value. The organizing is therapeutic work in disguise. Second, organizers observe that people often keep things not because they want them, but because getting rid of them feels like failing. That expensive exercise equipment represents broken fitness goals. Those craft supplies represent the creative person you wish you were. That children's artwork represents precious memories you fear losing. Organizing forces confrontation with the gap between aspirational identity and current reality. Professional organizer insights. Professional organizers who work with hundreds of clients develop fascinating psychological insights about what drives organizing behavior and what prevents it. I spoke with several experienced organizers, and certain patterns emerged that reveal deep truths about organizing psychology. First, they unanimously noted that the physical disorganization is almost never the real problem. It's a symptom of something else. Chronic disorganization often signals overwhelm, depression, unprocessed grief, difficult life transitions, or decision-making paralysis. People hire organizers hoping to fix the clutter, but what they often need is permission to let go, support through difficult emotions about possessions, or help identifying what they actually value. The organizing is therapeutic work in disguise. Second, organizers observe that people often keep things not because they want them, but because getting rid of them feels like failing. That expensive exercise equipment represents broken fitness goals. Those craft supplies represent the creative person you wish you were. That children's artwork represents precious memories you fear losing. Organizing forces confrontation with the gap between aspirational identity and current reality. The dark side. While organizing is generally positive, there's a darker side worth examining. When organizing behaviors signal or enable psychological problems rather than solving them. First, excessive organizing can be a symptom of obsessive-compulsive disorder. Unlike typical organizing that feels satisfying and concludes naturally, OCD-driven organizing involves distressing, intrusive thoughts, rigid rules that cause genuine anxiety when broken, and compulsive behaviors performed to relieve that anxiety. Someone with contamination OCD might reorganize repeatedly to ensure cleanliness. Someone with order-focused OCD might spend hours arranging items symmetrically, experiencing genuine distress if anything is moved. This isn't preference, it's pathology requiring treatment. Second, organizing can become an eating disorder symptom. People with restrictive eating disorders sometimes channel control needs into organizing when food control alone doesn't satisfy the psychological drive. The same perfectionism, rigidity, and need for control that characterizes eating disorders manifests in other domains, including home organization. If organizing behaviors coincide with disordered eating patterns, both need clinical attention. Third, organizing can enable avoidance of necessary life changes. If you're endlessly perfecting your home's organization while avoiding addressing a failing relationship, toxic job, or other major life problem, organizing becomes a sophisticated distraction mechanism. You feel productive and in control while the real issues remain unaddressed. This is particularly insidious because organizing provides legitimate accomplishment that masks the avoidance. Fourth, organizing can become a control mechanism in relationships, where one partner uses organizing standards to criticize, control, or diminish the other person. When helpful organizing suggestions feel like constant criticism, undermine autonomy, or serve to establish dominance, the behavior has crossed into psychological manipulation. Finally, organizing culture can fuel problematic consumption and shame. The constant message that you need matching containers, specific products, and Pinterest-perfect spaces to be a functional adult creates both financial pressure and inadequacy. For people already struggling with self-worth, this cultural messaging reinforces the belief that they're failing at basic adulthood. If any of these patterns resonate, consider whether your organizing serves your well-being or works against it. Therapy can help untangle these psychological knots and develop healthier relationships with both organizing and the underlying issues it might be masking. The authenticity question. Let's end with perhaps the most important psychological question about organizing. Are you organizing for yourself or performing organization for others? This distinction profoundly affects both the sustainability of your systems and your overall well-being. Authentic organizing serves your life, values, and actual daily needs. It makes your life genuinely easier, supports activities you value, and feels satisfying in private moments when no one's watching. Performative organizing, by contrast, serves external validation, creating Instagrammable spaces, impressing visitors, meeting others' standards, or proving something about yourself. The systems might look beautiful, but don't actually function well for your life. You maintain them out of obligation or image rather than because they serve you. This authenticity question matters because performative organizing is psychologically exhausting and ultimately unsustainable. You're maintaining systems that don't actually fit your life, performing a version of yourself that isn't genuine, and probably feeling inadequate when you can't maintain standards that never suited you anyway. Authentic organizing, by contrast, is self-reinforcing because the benefits are intrinsic. Several questions can help you assess authenticity. Would you maintain this organizing system if you lived alone and never had visitors? Does this system actually make your daily life easier? Are you organizing categories that matter to you or categories that organizing culture says should matter? Do your systems reflect how you actually use items or how you think you should use them? Does organizing feel like self-care or like obligation? There's no moral judgment here. Performative organizing isn't evil, and authentic organizing isn't virtuous. But understanding your motivations helps you make conscious choices about where to invest energy. You might decide that some performative organizing is worth it because you genuinely enjoy the aesthetic or the social aspect. That's fine if it's a conscious choice rather than unconscious obligation. The goal is alignment between your organizing behavior and your authentic values and needs. When that alignment exists, organizing becomes a tool that serves your life rather than another source of pressure and inadequacy. That's worth examining carefully. So what have we discovered about the psychology of people who love organizing? It's never just about tidy closets and labeled bins. Behind every organizing impulse lies a complex web of neurology, childhood experience, anxiety management, identity expression, relationship dynamics, and psychological needs. For some, it's a healthy expression of cognitive style and preference for order.